Sponsorship for this episode goes to Dan's Rentals, who's been a longtime supporter of the Kevin Unscripted podcast. With co-owner Chris Shire has been a guest on this podcast a couple times, episode 2 and also 12, possibly a third in the future. A little history of Dan's is they were started in 2002 by Dan Rohn, who had a very strong work ethic, knowledge, and standard of service that built the company with a reputation of expertise in the industry. 2019, Chris Schreier and Dwayne Sawchuk purchased Dan's Rentals, and since then they've grown and expanded into the Grand Prairie, Alberta area. Dan's Rentals provides a lot more than just rental equipment. With experienced field personnel and specialty downhole tool assemblies, or BHAs, they have what you need for virtually any operation, ranging from completions, workover, abandonments, or their specialty, which is deep basin critical sour. Whether you need a wellhead crossover connection for coil or rig operations, maybe an overshot for a rig job or a BHA assemblies for those dynamic jobs, the first and only call you'll need is to Dan's Rentals for leading edge industry experience. Give them a shout at one or two of the branches, which is Fort St. John, 250-785-6100, or the Grand Prairie office, which is 780-228-6616. And they've also got a, let me share this here real quick, website, which I'd like to show it to you. Here you go. This is what it looks like with the two branches, Fort St. John and Grand Prairie. Here they've got a little brief history of who they are. You scroll down and they've got you a little more contact information along with some of the services they provide and projects and whatnot. So give them a shout and onward with the show. Thanks a lot. We are now live. This is exciting. There's no turning around now. All right, guys. Welcome to Kevin Unscripted. I'll start with Aaron as someone who's already been on the podcast.
Returning guest.
Yeah, with Tim. I just got a note here because that was back it was last year. I think it was actually pretty much a year to the month at least anyway.
Yeah.
You and Tim were here.
Minus 35. I remember it was a freezing cold day.
Yeah, we got lucky this
now.
time because I think this weekend we're going to be walking into the same kind of weather.
Yep.
Episode 37. It was a little while ago now.
Oh, for sure.
And Jeremy Evans, welcome to the studio and Kevin Unscripted. I've been kind of looking forward to this for a little while. Is he getting a little excited?
Definitely.
Welcome to the show. I'll just kind of do a little bit more of a formal introduction, and then at least the listener over there is, like I said, the first time we've done videos. So, hey everyone, it's like the list. We got a whole nother group of people part of the conversation here. But why don't we tell them who you are? We'll start with Jeremy. At Corlanes, you gave me this little. Well, it was about the author and outline here, so I thought I would just go off of this. This does a pretty good description of you, who you are, and then we can go and I'll introduce Aaron, or reintroduce Aaron. So Jeremy Evans is an avid fisherman and hunter, and has been an outdoor enthusiast since a young age. Jeremy lives in Calgary, Alberta, with his nature-loving wife and young daughter, who skillfully handles a fishing rod like a veteran. In August 2017, at the age of 32 years old, Jeremy endured multiple ferocious attacks by a protective female grizzly bear while hunting in the Alberta wilderness. Jeremy's injuries were massive, his scalp and face destroyed, an eye and his jaw dangling down, and the tendons on one leg had been fully severed during the mauling. His hands were damaged where he had physically fought the bear. It was more than a dozen kilometers to where he had parked his truck in the darkness early that morning, and obviously no one was near. Thoughts of his wife and their 8-month-old daughter consumed Jeremy as he stumbled and crawled for hours back to his truck before driving himself several kilometers to a backcountry lodge for help. All the while, Jeremy thought of his young family and the upcoming sixth wedding anniversary that he feared that he might never have been able to celebrate. So that's a pretty good description of what had happened, and pretty curious to see what that story sounds like coming from you. because multiple attacks from a grizzly bear. Anybody who is familiar with this area is I think got a little bit more respect over what kind of power a grizzly bear has. But I think hopefully coming out of this, a lot of people, whether you're new to the area or maybe a little bit more prone to just kind of being used to that kind of wildlife, have a different perspective of what can possibly happen. So glad you're here. Tell your story. And Aaron Matthias, Correlates, co-owner, I believe, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah.
With Tim
and Greg. There's 3 of us.
the 3 of you.
Yep.
In Dawson Creek. And you introduced me and Jeremy, and were able to kind of help facilitate and put this together. So
For sure.
thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I got to meet Jeremy through our podcast, Hunt Hard Talk Free.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it all kicked off through, I want to say it was our Badlands rep and the purchase manager at my Prince George location, who is a friend of Jeremy's. And the 2 of them let me know that he had a book coming out. And I want to say the Badlands rep posted it on social media. And I reached out to you that within an hour and said, we need you on the show. Let's get you on Hunt Hard Talk Free. And he's thinking I'm some whack job way out in left field. Who is this guy reaching out to me? But he was very kind and humored me. And we lined it up for about a week later and had him on and kind of got to know him through telling the story.
Yeah.
And since then, I mean, we're inseparable. We're attached to the hip, him and I. No, I'm joking.
No, really. Wow. Extreme stories, I guess, bring people together. Eh?
Exactly.
So you're from Calgary, Alberta?
Yeah.
Southern Alberta?
Born and raised there in Calgary.
Okay. And I was looking at where, just reading your book on Google Maps. I'm just going to bring this up, and I thought maybe it could be neat to see where this actually happened. You're going to have to bear with me. I'm technically not really that. Here we go. Boom. Share. So here's Calgary right here.
So you want to head up a little bit north to Sundre?
Okay. Tell me when to stop there.
Go down a little bit right there to the left and go straight to the rocks. Yeah. And then just zoom in. No, to the first, right. Yeah. Right in there. Zoom in a bit more.
Careful. Don't give away your sheep hunting spots to the.
Well, we could do, that's a good point. We could do a general area.
Where's the lodge?
Well, this is the Banff National Park. And there's what highway is that?
The best sheep hunting is in that park.
Yeah.
Of course it would be.
So right where you see the zigzag in the road.
Right here.
Yeah. So just on the south side of the river, just head west. And the lodge is basically right around in there. So if you click on satellite view, it'll actually give you a little bit more.
Oh, cool. We are going to get detailed here.
Yeah. I mean, I can show you the sheep hunting spot. There's no sheep there. I haven't shot one there. There might be some bears. So right where your mouse is, if you go a little more, Panther River Resort, actually it's right on your screen there in the bottom right-hand corner. Yep.
This here.
That's the lodge that I went to.
Oh.
And if you follow that road, that your mouse is on, just follow that to the west, southwest. You keep going. And it goes around the nice hairpin turn. Yeah. And then keep going on.
Looks like some switchbacks there. Is there a bridge there? Is that crossing? Is that a river or a creek or something?
Yeah. There's a creek down there. It's a very large, steep switchback.
Okay.
You'll go off the road if you're not paying attention.
Oh yeah. Well, switchback. Fair.
So it's easy to navigate when your eyes are hanging.
Yeah, you just feel for the road.
Feel where the ditches are.
Feel the guardrail.
So this is the road here, and this must be a little side road.
Yeah, that goes up to a wellhead on top of a mountain. But yeah, if you keep following that trail all the way down, it keeps on going a bit more, goes down a big massive hill. Okay, now from there you head west, so towards you. Yeah, right there at that corner is where I parked my truck.
Oh, okay.
So that's the local spot where everybody parks and goes in.
Yeah.
There's the gate there, and then you follow that trail all the way in.
West here?
Yeah.
Still keep going west?
Keep going west. You keep following that trail. Keeps on going down the creek. Okay. Right where you're at there now, head down that drainage to the west.
Oh.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep going.
It looks like it kind of came up through here somewhere.
Yeah. And keep going more. Just keep going. And right there in that no, it's the next one down, actually. Next drainage down. Right. Oh, too far. Right there. That's where it was.
Holy crap, we just figured it out on Google Map. This is amazing. So for the people that are listening on the audio, they're like, what the hell? They're going to fast forward through all this. So I'm just going to zoom out to give us a bit of a reference as to where we are. Oh, I see. So if you were to look at, where is that? Is that
Water Valley?
Water Valley, straight east from Water Valley. And
Straight west?
Or west, sorry. You're right. Yeah, west. Anyone who was curious on Google Map, straight west is the area. So fairly southern Alberta, which is just north west of Calgary towards the Rocky Mountains. So that gives a guy at least a mental image of where this is. That's amazing country.
It's
like
beautiful.
Anybody who knows the Rockies there is not forgiving country. Very extreme terrain, isn't it? As far like we were talking about switchbacks and the trail just to get in there. And it's quite a trek just to even look on a map, never mind what it would be like if you're on the ground there.
It's quite the hike in.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you what was it from that spot where you showed us the bear? You encountered the bear from where he had parked that truck.
It's about 16 kilometers ish of a walk.
And that trail is that like a footpath, or is it like a quad? Or
so in the beginning of the trail, it used to be an old road going into a well site, and then they closed it down in the, I want to say, late 80s. And it's pretty well grown in now. There's the outfitter that hunts out of that area uses a horse and buggy, and they go in and set up the camp. And the camp is about I don't know, probably 5-6 kilometers from where I parked in. Wow. So they hunt, they sit there, or that's where their camp is, and they go from there out. And first time I was in there, I ran into them setting up the camp and talked to them. And of course, they wouldn't tell me where the sheep were, but they said you should just go in the back there and go look.
Go for a walk.
Go for a
check
walk.
it out. In other words, scout out the area you want for yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah, and so they kind of said, well, we're going to be in this area and this area, and you let us know what area you're going to be in, and we'll keep out of there, and you keep out of our spots. And I'm like, sure,
fair enough.
It was kind of a fair deal. So me and now wife, his girlfriend at the time, we were at the truck loading up our gear, and they were taking their stuff out, and we got on the trail, and the outfitter, older guy, and he grabbed my wife's backpack and threw it in the back of the horse and buggy. And I'm like, what about mine? He goes, well, you're a sheep hunter, you need to toughen up.
Well, that was the other thing I was curious about with terrain like that. You're obviously going in there, and this was obviously an area that you already had pre-planned, and expecting that if you ended up tagging out, this was going to be something that you were willing to pretty much pack all the way back out to your vehicle.
Yeah. Now, from when I got mauled, I hunted there about 17 years in a row. Actually, I shot a bull moose back in where I got mauled by a bear. I shot a little bullwinkle moose. That was pretty cool, and end up spending 3-4 days hauling that guy out. And
holy smokes, that's a commitment, isn't it?
Sucker for punishment.
It was that big. Yeah, it was. It was. I was pretty excited. You were able to hunt moose in there without a draw, so I went in there and I saw a moose, and of course I was like, "Yeah, this is cool." So I shot it, and they're like, "Well, that was kind of dumb." But 3 days later of taking piggyback trips, so I'd cut it up into 4 pieces, and I would hike a quarter out, say 100 yards, go back, get a second piece, and then take that one 100 yards past the first piece, and I just kept piggybacking it. Oh. And it took a better part of 3 days to get it out.
So what do you do when you're going back and forth for each quarter when it comes to scent and maybe attracting predators? Do you keep it underwater to keep the scent down and cool, or?
No, I just dropped on the edge of the trail and
away you go.
away you go. I didn't really think about bears at that time.
So let's kind of go back a little bit to try and, I guess, set the stage just a little bit. This was something that you had mentioned you've gone in there quite a few times. So is this an area that you know, and it's an annual trip that you go and you're hunting sheep, or was this a draw, or what were the intentions of you being there? Was it just a fun trip that you wanted to kind of fill out your tag for that year, or was it, you know, like I said, planned every year?
It was something I was wanted to shoot a sheep when I was in high school. And so when I got out of high school, I kind of looked for an area where there's not a lot of people. And I just put a dot in the map and went and checked out a bunch of spots. And this one here was the kind of close, relatively close to where I lived. And there's no people there. And it was about a 10-kilometer hike into the mountain. So I know the average person wasn't going to be in there hunting. I wanted to go to a place where I wouldn't see a lot of people. So I have, I guess, a better chance of getting a sheep.
Yeah. Oh, well, it makes sense. But do you go in with a partner, or do you go on your own typically?
I would typically go in with somebody, or I had a few people I used to hunt sheep with, but usually about day 3, day 4, they tap out.
It's a little bit too rugged.
A little bit too rugged, too far in. By the time you carry all your gear, and then every day you're walking into different mountain passes, it takes a toll on somebody pretty quick.
Do you prep for it? Like, do you kind of get in shape or kind of plan for a little bit of pretty much get in shape? Is there a routine that you do to kind of get psyched out for a trip like that?
Yeah, every year I'd probably start around June. Do a lot more jogging, running, and some weightlifting. Mostly carrying a backpack with sandbags, and then jogging with that just to help get in shape.
Just get the endurance up there, for sure. I read part of the book that Aaron had sent me, but for some reason, and you're going to obviously clarify, but I thought weren't the initial plans to go in there with a buddy?
Yeah, I spent the whole summer and they were doing lots of scouting, found the sheep, and a week before I went in there with a buddy, and we made our plan to go hike in there and to look for sheep on the opening week.
Yeah.
We're going to go on the day before, find our rams, and then hopefully opening morning harvest them and then hike out. That was the plan. But then the day before we left, he got sick and was not able to attend. And so, me being stubborn as I am, I was like, I'm going anyways.
I'm not giving this up.
Nope. This is my year to get a sheep. I spent, like I said, spent all summer in there. I finally found some rams, and they're actually hanging out outside of the park. And so I was really excited. Like I spent a lot of time. And
have you tagged a ram before?
No, not yet.
Oh man. So I could see where an opportunity, you weren't going to let it go. That's for sure.
Well, with sheep hunting, they say the year you start sheep hunting is the year your sheep is born. So it means you're going to hunt for like 8 years before you're successful.
That's the rule of thumb.
On average.
Yeah. Wow.
And sheep hunting's, they call it the 3% club, because the less than 3% of hunters are ever successful harvesting a sheep.
Yeah, a lot of groundwork going into something like this.
And if you don't train, it's tough to be successful when you're up there on the mountain.
I mean, being in shape is one thing. You got to be able to be in shape, be in there, but trying to find a legal ram. I think in Alberta is a 4% chance of shooting a legal ram. For every ram, I believe there's 60 to 80 hunters for that, looking for that one ram. Wow.
Well, no wonder you made the effort of going into an area where there weren't really too much for competition.
Yeah.
And that trapper's cabin was holding the cards close to him, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So what happened that day? Like how did that kind of play out? You packed up, you already had everything, I guess, pre-packed the night before, and you left. Did you leave that morning?
I left the night before. So I got home from work around 4 o'clock, took a nap, and then I usually leave around 11:30 at night and drive out there. And I got out there about a little after 3:30.
In the afternoon?
No, in the morning.
Oh, you left home. Sorry. Yeah, my bad.
I left home at 11 p.m. and got in there about 3:30 in the morning. Got out, got my bicycle out of the truck, and grabbed my pack and hopped on that and rode my way in.
What were you going to do? Oh, so you used the bike, just throw when you tag out, you got a bicycle to get back to your truck.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is about
that's
using
smart, eh? Yeah.
the nice thing about using a bicycle is when you're going downhill, you can go really quick.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're going uphill, you take your pack off, put it on your bicycle, and push it up like a cart.
But you're coming out loaded downhill, and then you're going back in with your bike empty.
Probably not going to go back in with a sheep.
No,
but
hauling that whole thing out in one. But yeah, you go in empty.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has a awesome spot with a trail that you can ride a bike down, because there's,
for the most part, yeah,
right to where you got mauled. Because that was kind of the end of the well-beaten path, right?
Yeah, so from the end of the path to where I got mauled is probably about a 2.5-3 kilometer stretch of just game trails, really. A little bit of horse traffic, but very little.
So what's the terrain like? Is it bedfall, or is it kind of starting to come out of alpine, high elevation, or what's it like where you were?
You're pretty high up. You're just kind of coming out of the trees, kind of in the shorter spruce, more willow, just kind of on the edge of where the rocks start. Yeah, I guess coming out of the alpine a little bit of grassy slopes, and then the trees start getting farther and farther apart, and then there's lots of willows in that area.
Were you packed up fairly heavy? Like this was going to be like a week kind of trip, or were you going to go in for a day or two and then kind of come back out? Some scouting.
I was planned for a 4-day hunt, 4 days of hunting, and then the first day of pre-scout. So I guess packed in for 5 days. About a 80 to 100 pound pack. Had my tent and sleeping bag, spotting scope, and I probably had just about everything.
You're geared up pretty decent then, eh? You're ready for different weather and pretty much the whole go in there for a decent amount of time then.
Yeah. I mean, at that time of the year in August, the temperature's usually warm, but I've had it where you'd be sunny and 75, next day 2 feet of snow.
Rockies. Yeah, the Rockies. You got to plan for the worst and hope for the best, eh?
Well, and I'd say he was geared up better than most people. Like, I would say he was a little crazy to have 100 pounds going into the mountains. When I go on trips like that, I haven't done many, but my goal is to try and have 50 pounds going in.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be coming out with
100
or more. If he's by himself, it's going to be more than that.
Yeah.
So to go in with 100, I couldn't imagine coming out of the mountains with a 200 pound pack on my back.
Yeah.
It's
well,
intense.
the man, trying to plan, risk versus reward when it comes to packing, for planning for everything, but then of course making sure that you're packing light enough to be able to actually have what you need but not too much of it.
Yeah.
Do you have how do you do that? Is that a checklist, or you have an idea of what to bring and you just put everything in there every time that is a standard pack for you?
Yeah, I kind of had like a checklist, like like spotting scope and tripod. Of course, I had the biggest spotting scope known to man and the heaviest tripod, but they always had to go in. And then I always carry like a 1 kg jar of peanut butter. That's always nice to have on the mountainside.
For bear?
Bait. Sweeten you up a little bit. And then my wife made me a lunch too, and some sandwiches, and they were in a glass Tupperware. Just like of all the things, it was kind of funny. I mean,
at least you're able to look back with humor, right?
Yeah.
I know a place you can get some serious lightweight hunting gear. I'll hook you up later.
Well, I mean, you did have some pretty decent gear, because I met you just a little while ago at Corling's, and you had your pack there, and a lot of the equipment and clothes that you had at the time of the mulling. And that was was a Badlands gear. Like, it's not bad. You didn't cheap out. You got some nice gear there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was fully outfitted with Badlands. I had the Badlands Ox pack with the external frame. They call it has a meat shelf on it. Very, very great pack. I had it for probably about 5-6 years at that point, and it could take a lot of weight. I mean, I used it to carry bear bait and my moose out. And a very good pack. And the Badlands gear, of course, top of the line. I've used it in lots of different situations, and down in the desert, Africa, and all throughout the Rockies.
Oh wow, you are a no joke hunter. You travel, you go down to Africa to go hunting, and wow, very experienced then. Obviously, that's a passion.
I'm a granola muncher.
So this is something you've done your whole life.
Yeah,
You're born and you grew up hunting.
Yeah, I grew up sitting between the legs of my dad on the tree stand while he was shooting deer with a bow and arrow.
Oh wow! Well, no wonder it's such a passion for you. It's a part of who. It's almost an identity, then, eh? Like, I mean, if you grew up hunting like that.
Yeah, I shot my first big game animal when I was 5 years old. It was a mule deer doe, and then I got another one at 7.
5 years old.
5 years old.
You tagged out 5.
5 years old. I used a 6mm, and I shot a mule deer doe.
How far away?
About 100 yards. Yeah.
What took you so
at
long?
5 years old?
I couldn't carry the gun.
Jeremy, that's crazy. Wow, good for you. Yeah. Unreal.
I still got the rug.
Have you met anybody else that's been able to tag or shoot something at 100 yards at 5? And you want even one person? It's impressive. That's pretty cool. Right on. So do you go hunting with your kids then too, or like is this something that you wanted to kind of instill and experience with them also?
Yeah, I do. I take my daughter lots out duck hunting. She likes to go and retrieve the duck. She's a retriever. She calls them in and she goes and retrieves them. My son too, at a very young age, we took him out, got the earplugs, strapped him in, and he'd sit there in his little carrier, and we'd go hunt ducks and geese. And they helped me set up the decoys. And my daughter likes to put them in little family groups with the bigger one, and then surrounded by all the babies, the ducks. Yeah, it's I enjoy it. I like to do a lot more hunting with them, and carrying them around, and it's fun.
For everything that is said about hunting, it probably has, I think, the most understanding of nature as general. And that's I think encompassing not only the wildlife but terrain. And the reason I wanted to kind of ask some of those questions is because a lot of times people take for granted, I think, a sense of just awareness surrounding what you're looking for. This wasn't, I think, that happened because of a lack of understanding. You weren't going out in the middle of nowhere that needed, search and rescue to come out because of a lack of skill or planning, or experience. Quite obviously, people are very quick to try and just say, well, who is this guy anyways, right? And so it puts things into perspective, especially we were going back to like what we were saying earlier. A lot of the people up here, we take things like that for granted because you're in it quite often. And when you are that passionate about it, to be able to want to share that experience with your offspring, your kids, much like how your father had done with you, it's people shouldn't just shrug it off as, I think, a lack of just being naive, right? That's definitely not what we're talking about when you had this experience. You put a pin drop in the mountains that very other few people, from what you were just telling me, even are daring to go in there and join you for an experience like that.
Out of all the years I've hunted in there, I've maybe seen 1 or 2 people in there that far back in. Well, not where I'm at, but not as far back in, but only 1 or 2 people I've seen. I've actually never seen anybody come to where my sheep camp was, or have any sign of anybody being in there. It was usually the only one.
What do you classify as a sheep camp? Like, is that an actual area that you've kind of built a shelter for?
No, I carried in a picnic table and set it up in there, and dug a hole in the ground. I buried a 45-gallon drum to put my food in there. So during the summer, I'd hike in there and take canned food and
like a cache.
Yeah, and bury it in there. And the only problem is when you do that, you got to make sure you write on there with felt pen because the labels don't stay on. So you're kind of musical.
So we should go back to that map and show everybody there's a cache here.
Yeah, I remember the one day the outfitter was like, "Who's the idiot that carried a picnic table back there?"
Well, you're the first one I've heard talk about taking a bike. It's smart. It's a very, you hear of people taking canoes to try and get downstream close to the foothills, but a bike is actually a pretty ingenious way of going about it. So what kind of bike is it? Is it a mountain bike? Or?
Yeah, I just got a really a little basic hardtail mountain bike with it's called a rock hopper. Yeah, just a standard El Cheapo
rock hopper.
Yeah,
It's not those
rock,
ones
rock hopper.
they jump like on obstacles. You can jump up onto a bench and kind of bunny hop and go from one obstacle to another, is it?
No, it's just a regular hardtail mountain bike made for climbing hills.
Okay.
It's more of
Fair
a
enough.
lightweight hill climbing mountain bike.
Yeah. Okay, so the day of you get in there. You said you arrived. You parked your truck around 11 o'clock. You said roughly.
I left my house around 11 o'clock and parked the truck at 3:30 a.m.
Oh, in the morning.
In the morning, hopped on the bike and rode in on with the moonlight. You know, it was fairly bright out, clear sky, and rode my bike in. And closer, I guess, about 3/4 of the way in, there's the trail kind of goes up a hill, and I remember riding my bike and looking out on the one side, and there's two cowboys sitting around a fire right at the crack of dawn. Looked like they were, getting their coffee, and one guy had like a big Lanny McDonald mustache, and he's looking at me drinking his coffee. And as I'm riding my bike past their camp up the hill, and they're just shaking their heads.
Damn city boy in his
bike.
Yeah.
Who's this guy on the bike, right? And he's a great big pack, and hear him just like pedaling by. I was wearing like blaze orange shorts and a maroon shirt and this huge pack, and had a full face helmet on, like I was ready for war. And they're just looking at me sipping their coffee, like, who's this guy? So I rode past them about probably another hour or so till I got to the end of the trail. And then at the end of the trail, the road just literally just dead ends at a drainage. Then you got to walk down the drainage and get into the trees, and a little bit of a horse trail. And then it kind of slowly fades out. When you get to the next drainage, the trail kind of thins out and just more of a game trail. And so when I got to that point, it was light enough out that you could see quite a ways in. I guess how you can describe it was like there's shadows on the hillside. It's a perfect time to spot sheep or spot animals moving, because you can see the shadow makes them, longer, a little bit easier to see. So I was taking my time. I'd go down the drainage, come up the other side, and I'm just getting to the edge of the tree. So, you walk 3-4 feet, sit there and look for 10 minutes, and go another 3-4 feet, keep looking. And I was working my way up into the back bowl towards where my camp was. And I just 10 feet at a time and look, and I spotted some sheep, and I was like, oh, I was pretty excited. Like, oh, this is great. And I remember I wanted to stop to eat, but I was too excited. There were sheep there. So I had to keep
an eye on them.
Keep an eye on them. Is there any rams in there? Is that the ones I'm looking for? And I just slowly moving my way along the edge of the tree line and making sure that they don't see me, and vice versa. And,
how far were these? Like when you spotted them, were they in the distance quite a ways, or you were concerned that they might sense you there?
They were about I'd say about 500 to 700 yards away.
Oh, they are pretty close.
Yeah, so they were fairly close. So I just because where my camp is, you got to go across a couple open spots on the mountainside. It gets to a pretty tight drainage, so I kind of want to make sure see where they were going to go first, and then kind of make my way out of their way and set up camp, and hopefully sit on them for the day and harvest one the next morning.
Yeah,
that was kind of my plan. So I had all the time in the world to get in there and set up. So I wasn't too worried about time. I was more worried about where are they going to go, and I didn't want them to see me, I guess.
Yeah, get an idea of exactly where they were going to bed down for the day.
Yeah.
So before I let you continue on with these sheep, I'm a little bit more of the novice when it comes to this level and technical hunting. But from my understanding, the sheep typically will usually travel between a cycle of a day between bedding down and where they typically feed. And if you can figure out where they bed down and feed, that's going to allow you to kind of predict where they might be, because they've got a bit of a pattern in their day-to-day routines. Is that accurate, or is there any truth to that?
They do have their patterns. Like if you see a sheep in that bowl today, then next year around the same time there's going to be sheep in that area. So they're kind of very I don't know what's the word to use.
Well, they stick to one area. It's not like once you kind of figure out where they are, there was going to be a chance they wouldn't be there the following day for you to be able to go and harvest. So there's quite a bit of value in figuring out kind of where these things were hanging out.
They can just disappear the next day.
Yeah.
And they might not come back there for a couple days, but they are predictable that when you find a spot that has, quite often they like a mineral lick, and they want to come back for those minerals. So again, if you see sheep in there today, that's a spot that sheep will be back. Now, it might not be tomorrow, or it could be every day. They just hang out in there if they've got a good safe place to bed down, because they're very sketchy creatures when it comes to predators, and they want to be above and where they can see
looking down,
anything coming up, right?
Okay.
So,
yeah, like sheep really freak out when you're above them. When you get above a sheep, they just go nuts. They don't like it at all. They like to be the highest thing on the mountainside.
Out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's the best way to come at them, though, too.
It is.
Because they're not looking up, they're looking down.
Yeah. And it's the hardest to see them, too, because when you're on top of a mountain trying to look down, you can't necessarily see what's below you. It's tough.
So your vantage point right now was over and slightly down.
I was more level with them.
Okay.
They were kind of right across on the other side of the valley from me. So they were a little bit higher than me in elevation, but not much. I was pretty much looking straight across the drainage.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, continue.
Technical sheep hunting right here.
Yeah. So yeah, I was watching the sheep, and I was like, oh, there's some young rams in there. I'm like, oh, that's got to be the group that I've been watching all summer long, and I was getting pretty excited. So I was sitting there watching them. I was took off my backpack and leaned against my bike, and I had my elbows on the handlebars, and I was sitting there watching these sheep, and I'm like, oh, it's really cool, and getting excited. And I brought my binoculars down to reposition, and when I did that, I noticed this little brown thing run in front of me there, and I knew right away what it was. Like, I knew right away it was a bear. Like, I just knew. So I saw it run in front. I'm like, oh shit! It's just one of those moments where you know something bad's going to happen, so it ran in front, and then I'm like, oh crap. So reaching down in my backpack, and dumb me, I put my bear spray in the bottom of my backpack this morning. I was too lazy to strap it to my chest.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, threw in the backpack. Whatever was the chances of me seeing a bear, right? So I was reaching in my backpack to grab my bear spray, and as I'm reaching down, I heard a branch break behind me, and as I was turning my head, caught the glimpse of Mama. She was less than an arm's length away, and she had her front paw stretched out, and I remember just seeing the whites of her eyes on the one side, and like kind of her eyes rolled back, and mouth was open. She was on a full charge running in. So what I did was I grabbed my bicycle with my right hand and grabbed the frame, and I just dropped it in front of her and stepped aside. Her head went right through the frame of the bicycle, and she picked her head up, and of course, the bike's like a necklace on her, and she shook it off, and I grabbed my pack by the frame, and I had the part that goes against your back was facing her, and first thing I did was she came to bite me, and I shoved it right in her face, and then picked the pack up and started beating her over the head
with your pack.
With my pack, and of course it's the ox pack with the metal side, so I was trying to hit her in the head with that and push her back. As I was doing that, she first grabbed my hand against the pack and crushed my hand against the frame of the pack, and so I got my hand free, and she grabbed the other side. Anyways, we were standoff for 15-20 seconds or so.
So you were on your feet at this point still? You were able to kind of lean into it and almost like you were grappling.
Like a shield.
Yeah.
Using like a shield.
Oh.
Yeah, I just, pushing her back, trying hitting her in the head, and
the power. Like, it's just with your bike around its neck at this point, and you're pushing it back with your backpack. Oh.
Yeah, and you didn't really feel the power, but like she was kind of almost like she was hesitant. She wasn't like super aggressive, like it just it was kind of like a standoff there, and then she turned and started backing away, and so I was backing up, she was going the other way back into the drainage, so I was backing up to get out of there. And as I'm doing that, I'm trying to get my gun off the back of the pack or grab my bear spray, and I looked down, try to unbuckle it and my gun, and then I looked up, and she turned right around, and she come right back towards me. she was coming a little faster this time. Definitely had like determination in her eye. Like she looked like she was coming to get me. And so I just panicked, and she was probably about, a couple feet away. I threw the pack at her, and then just threw it at her and ran up the hillside. I probably got about 60 yards or so up the hillside. And what I was trying to do is trying to run up the hill, so I can jump off the hillside into a tree to get faster height. I mean, that was my grand idea.
There weren't a lot of trees where you were at, and you're kind of on a little bit of a hill.
Yeah, about a 35-degree, 40-degree slope.
So it's fairly steep where you were.
Fairly steep, and there's trees, every 6 to 10 feet apart. So not a lot of trees, and not very big trees. So I found a tree that I thought was a fairly large, tall tree. So I grabbed the tree and jumped into it. I got about 5-6 feet up. My right leg was hanging low. I had when I jumped across, it was a spruce tree, and I had my left leg was on a branch, and I was pushing myself up, and right leg
just scramble the hell out of there.
Yeah, pretty quick. And
yeah,
I just remember you can hear the huff of the bear, like you can just hear it like pounding on the ground when it was running behind me. You can definitely tell it was coming.
Yeah.
And climbing up a tree, and I'm pulling myself up, and I'm looking down, and I can see my right leg's kind of hanging lower, and she was right there at the bottom of the tree. She stood up, and she reached up with her paws, just reached up and just wrapped her paws around my right leg and just pulled it right into her mouth.
Wow.
And I just remember looking down, and I could see her teeth in her mouth open up. I'm like, this is gonna hurt. And then her just sunk her jaws right around my leg and knee, and just you could feel it, and and
around your knee. So your whole leg was in its mouth.
Yeah. So her mouth was behind in the back of my knee, and her teeth were wrapped around to the front.
That's a big bite. Holy crap.
Yeah, so I'm looking down, I can see her and go around, and I can just see her closing her jaws, and I can just see her teeth sinking in, and I'm looking at it going, like, this is going to hurt, and I didn't feel anything. And then she just plucked her head off, and I went flying out of the tree. I hit the ground pretty hard, and it was a little dazed, but I scrambled underneath the spruce tree and tried wrapping around the spruce tree, just trying to get around the base of it and hold on, and I figured the spruce browse would protect me from her. So she was clawing at me, and she seemed to be kind of frustrated with it. She's trying to get at me, and it was only getting the branches. And then she stopped, and she just reached in with her mouth and grabbed me by the left side, kind of in like the love handles. And she picked me up and threw me about 6 feet. She just grabbed me, picked me up, and shook her head, and I was flying.
Plucked you right out of the spruce.
Just like nothing. I mean, the amount of power, and she just, like, one little bite and just boom.
Wow.
So
she wasn't a big bear either, like as far as grizzly bears go.
No, she wasn't an average size female, so around the 300-350 pound mark. Nothing huge. And she picked me up and threw me. When I hit the ground, I was dazed, like, wow, like, what's going on? It was literally a half a second later, she was on top of me, like literally just super quick, lightning speed. And, I'm laying there curled up in a ball on my right side. And of course, thinking going through your head is play dead, right?
That's what they keep telling people to do.
Yeah. And so I'm curled up in a ball trying to protect myself. And she came right in. And I remember I watched her, my eyes are wide open, and her first bite caught me right on the corner of the left eye. One of her canines came in right at the corner where your tear duct is, and one canine was there, one canine was on the other side of my eye, and she crunched down all the way down to my jaw. It was the first bite. And I remember laying there, and you can just feel the bones in your face crush and crack. And I mean, like, the popping inside your head is super loud. And it didn't really feel it, just more, you can
pressure, felt like pressure more than anything else.
Yeah. Kind of like going to the dentist and how they work on your teeth. You could feel them. It just kind of felt like that, but you can just hear everything cracking and popping, and it just so loud. And I was like, wow, this sucks. It's really hard to lay still when something's chewing on you. gonna say? I mean, it's really hard just to like everyone tells you to play dead, but it's really hard to play dead when something's turned on your face, right?
Well, did it kind of, I mean, it happens so quick, but something like that, I'm sure would have kind of paralyzed you. Like, I'm sure you were wanting to do something, but were you still trying to fight back, or was this just something where it's just happening so fast that the experience of it was just kind of leading from one moment to the next?
It happened so quick. So when she tossed me and I hit the ground till she was on top of me, it was probably half a second, and then they're just right away, bang. So I guess within 3 seconds of me hitting the ground, she already took a bite on my face.
Wow.
You know, and what do you do, right?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I didn't either, you know.
In that position.
Yeah, I never experienced this before. So what I did was, you know, she bit me and I kind of rolled over and I was like, this sucks. So I started punching her in the face and sticking my fingers in her nose and poking her eye. And as I was, you know, I grabbed her corner of her nose and tried to peel it on the side, and she was snapping at my hand. And then you know, her eye was right there, so I tried poking that. She pulled her head away and snap at my hands, and I mean, she got kind of, it looked like I was like aggravating her, like, you know, poking her ear and eye and nose, and then she come down to bite me again, and it just was like a perfect moment. Her mouth was wide open, she's coming down, and it was like a sweet moment, like, you know, like, anyways, her mouth wide open, and
a sweet moment. Like, this was something you can see because the side of your butt, Jody. I'm good, but it took a bite on you, but you still you're aware of what was going on and vision out of your other eye.
Yeah,
the side of your face.
Yeah, both eyes were pretty good at this point. The left eye, yeah, was a little damaged, but I can still see pretty good with my right.
Yeah,
and just like it was a perfect moment because the way her head was coming down and with her mouth open, it was like in line with my left arm to punch in. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna
moment of opportunity.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna punch her. And then it just, oh, and I went to go punch her. I punched my fist right into her mouth. And I just remember feeling her tongue and just sliding my fingers down her tongue. You could feel like, it felt like soft leather at first, like car seat leather almost. And then you could feel the bumps on her tongue, and you could feel like the ridge down the center, and then like all the little scars. Like, it's a very, it still haunts me today, that feeling. It just, I just remember feeling it, and you get down and I could feel the back of her mouth or throat. And I had my index and middle finger kind of stuck down her throat, and I used my thumb, pinky, and ring finger and kind of wrapped around her tongue and held on. And when I did that, she kind of like gagged and was like making like a choking and a kind of almost like a pig squeal, like a really deep, you could tell. And she was like mostly gagging
and probably a little bit of shock and pain all in one. Whereas,
more like shock. She didn't, I don't know if she knew what to do. She's kind of probably shocked. Like, what's this?
Never had that happen before. I mean, like that.
It didn't know what to do.
A moose doesn't shove its leg down her throat.
So how far, like, you were up to your elbow?
No. I just remember when my hand was in her mouth and, you know, laying down looking at her, her nose was about 3/4 of the way down to my elbow. Wow. And so I just remember like seeing like her lips and her nose right there, and I'm like, oh wow, like, I mean, I'm in there deep.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, totally. This is so cool, you know. You can only do this twice, right?
Is anyone filming this?
So yeah, my hand's in there, and she's like choking, gagging. She was standing over top of me, like her front legs were on my left side. I'm laying on my back at this point. Her front legs are on my left side, and her back legs were digging in my right side. And I just remember feeling her claws like pinching in, and it was hurting. So I was trying to, you know, my hand in her mouth, holding her tongue, and I'm pushing on her hind quarters, trying to get her legs off of me. And of course, I mean, no matter what I can do, I can't move her. She just wouldn't budge. And then my hand it slipped, and it hit something soft, and I could tell it was the belly. There's like no hair, and it's like a thin spot.
Yeah.
And so like, oh sweet, you know, like this is, and then I reached up, and I grabbed something very fleshy and I thought it was balls at the time. So I grabbed it and just got a big handful and twisted and pulled. And when I did that, she made a horrible sound like a pig, real deep, deep squeal of a pig. And she was like choking and kind of heaving and squealing like a pig all at the same time. And I just remember the smell of her breath is just like a horrible, like wet dog, rotten kind of smell. And
yeah, hot breath.
Yeah, like it just was like, ugh. And I just remember her shoulder was rubbing against my face, and just the smell of the fur, and just not a pleasant smell.
I believe you.
So soft. And whenever I had it, it definitely was causing her pain. And she was very excited and trying to get away, and I let go, and she took off. She ran kind of up the mountain and back into the back bowl. And so immediately after she got out, I got up and I dusted myself off. I'm like, well, that sucked. Walked over to my backpack, got my backpack, flipped it open, and I'm like, well, my hands are kind of messed up here. And I pulled out my cell phone and turned it on selfie mode, and I was like, oh, let's see how pretty I look, right? So I popped it out. I'm looking at it. Oh, okay. So I'm taking the picture, and that's the picture in the book there. And I remember sitting there looking at it, going, well, is this? I can still go over there and shoot that sheep, or I can go and hunt that bear.
So that's a memory you had, thinking of just the shock, of that.
I don't know necessarily. I probably was in shock, but it was more of just me sitting there, just like, this sucks. Like, this is my year to shoot a sheep, and he's over there, and I'm so close, and this stupid bear, and
just trying to figure a workaround.
Yeah.
On after being mauled a little bit.
I was just thinking, maybe just wrap my shirt around my head, and I'd be good to go, right? Like, let's go and shoot that sheep, and let's get out of here.
The pain hadn't kicked in because the adrenaline was still pumping so hard.
Yeah, I didn't really feel anything. It just like, I was just looking at it like, oh wow,
my modeling career's over, but I can harvest that ram.
That's right.
If I could just get that ram, this will all be worth it.
This will be worth it, right? You gotta get that sheep there, like a ram and me, that'd be cool.
Well, anybody who's been in, I think, a very intense, extreme situation like that usually do have thoughts that are what we would consider to be odd, but it's the rationale and the thought process. You are in shock, and obviously that was something that was paramount for you being out there. It's funny that that's kind of something that you remember thinking, and it was bad enough to take a picture, but you're like, I can do this. I mean, that's a whole nother level of crazy tough.
Well, and this picture, for the audience at home, that you took of yourself is not for the faint of heart. I mean, it is the epitome of gore on the internet. And when you looked at that and thought, I can still do this, this hunt is still possible.
Is there a picture that we can see on?
Yeah. If you're on social media, well, you can dig it up on his social media or on the Core Lanes one. We've got it on both. And I mean, Facebook blocks it out until you click on it because of the
maybe what we'll do is I'll let you continue with the story.
You can dig
but
it up.
Like in a little bit here, I'll kind of find a moment to take a look at that picture.
I do have a question for you though. Rewinding back to the time when you're sitting on your bike glassing, do you think that the bears were there when you rode your bike in and stopped? Like, did you come into them, or did they come up onto you to get startled? How do you think that played out?
Well, I think they were in the back bowl there. There was a very large berry patch that I knew of that I used to go and eat lots. And so I think they were in there. And just because of the way I was going in, like the 4 or 5 feet at a time, stop, look, and we had no clue. Maybe if I was going in there faster, probably would have made a lot of noise and they would have heard me and took off. But I think just because I was very quiet, kind of slowly moving my way in, they had no clue, and I had no clue they were there.
So you came up without them. You startled them. You pretty much.
No, I don't think I necessarily startled them. What I think happened was the way the trail goes down into the drainage, and it kind of turns up, goes up the hill and or up the mountain and cuts across the side. I think the bears were in that berry patch, and they were coming down the trail early morning, probably heading back or going to get water. And The cub was in front and she come running down the trail and passed me, and mama, trailing behind, being slow.
Oh, I see.
So the cub got past and the wind was blowing up the drainage. And so where she was coming from the downwind side of me. So probably when she come around the corner of the trail and sees her cub and she could smell me, she just full panic mode.
Gotcha.
Got between them. So I think they were just moving down. Yeah.
And they weren't expecting to come across you.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Ninja'd your way.
So in the outline here, it said there were multiple attacks. So the first one was where it came on top of you and plucked you out of the tree.
No, I kind of way I look at it is the first interaction. So with my backpack, me beating over my backpack, I call that round 1.
Gotcha.
And then round 2 is the tree. And then, we haven't gotten to round 3 yet, but
from the tree till now is round 2.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Round 2.
Okay.
Round 2 is where the picture is
So-
taken.
We're not done.
No.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And so you look at the state of his face after round 2, and it gets worse.
So do you have a picture of that?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
After round 3?
Yes.
So should we maybe
Wow.
look at this picture now and then you can, so as a reference?
I don't have that picture with me. That one's really bad. I have those in that file that I just don't. It's pretty.
It's not
It doesn't need to exist.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
It doesn't need to be brought into the light.
Yeah.
So the
Fair enough.
picture that you put in the book is after the second round.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we'll take a picture. We'll take a look at that after then. So at this point, so I obviously didn't read that well enough, because I thought when it had bit down on your face, that was pretty much where it had had enough, and you scared it away, or you pretty much were able to fend yourself off to the best you could, and by sticking your arms down its throat.
So after that, I took the picture, and I'm sitting there. I got my pack, leaning up against the old rotten stump on the trail there, and leaning against that, and had my backpack, and I was going through it looking for bandages and whatnot, and just didn't know what to do. I grabbed my gun and sitting there, had the gun against my shoulder, leaning against my left shoulder, and I had my clip in my hand, and I was sticking rounds in, thinking, man, that stupid bear, like, what do you do, right? So I'm loading up my gun, and as I'm loading up the clip, I just remember hearing a sound of like ice breaking, and it was very loud, and I could feel something like pressure in the back of my head, or back of my neck. She had come back, and she grabbed me by the back of the head, kind of base of the skull and the neck. And I just remember she bit down, and you hear the ice, everything, like things breaking. And that's when I dropped the clip, and my hands and arms just kind of went limp. So she grabbed me by the back, and she was dragging me into the bush. She had her claws, were digging in the ground, and I can hear her just like huffing and dragging me, and I can just feel myself getting pulled across. She had me at the back of the head, and I don't recall how far, but it felt like a little ways as she pulled me in. And I was sitting on my butt, legs stretched out in front of me. When she stopped, I was in an upright position, leaning against her front leg. And she reached over with her claw and grabbed me on the right side. My face caught me kind of on the corner of the mouth, on the right side and nose, and her claws ripped right through my eye and all the way down the right side of my head, kind of like pulling off my ear and all the skin, and just like one big swipe. And then she then was she then was holding my head, and she was chewing on the back of it like a dog chewing on a bone, just kind of gnawing on it. And you just hear it, and things like cracking. You feel her teeth scraping, or hear her teeth scraping across the skull, and she's ripping and tearing and pulling. She was chewing on my left side, my neck, by my ear, and just ripping all that out. And I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't really feel anything. Couldn't move my arms, nothing. And she was just going to town. And she must have shifted or moved her body, and I fell against the ground. and I remember like I hit the ground and it just felt like an energizing moment, like everything just got reconnected and I could move my arms, and it just was like, it was a weird feeling. So anyways, I hit the ground, and I remember I couldn't really see at this point. Everything was really fuzzy, and you just see like dark and like fuzz. And um, I could tell she was standing above me, and I could feel her belly and her hair on my face. And so she was at this point standing over me, and I just instinctively just reached up, and I could feel the softness of her belly, and I'm like, oh, wicked. So I reached up and grabbed what I thought was balls again with both hands, and I grabbed as hard as I could, and I pulled myself up, kind of like doing a chin up, and then I wrapped my legs around her head and neck and just kind of locked them in, and sitting there holding on, and just whatever I had, I was trying to rip off. And she was rolling around, bucking like a bronco, rolling around on the mountainside and just squealing, like a deep, deep squeal. And I remember she was defecating at the same time as this was happening. You just smell it. Anyways, she was rolling around and just jumping. I'm hanging on for dear life. And then I could tell her she was running in, or moving in one direction. Like she was like trying to run away. And I let go, and she kept going. I was just landing on the ground, and I didn't know where it was. Well, I kind of knew where it was on the hillside. A little disoriented. I crawled down the hill, and I managed to find the trail right away. And I crawled down and found my pack. And when I got to my pack, I was feeling around to find my gun. Like I couldn't see. This point in time, my left eye was hanging out of the socket, hanging down. In order for me to look forward, I had to like pick up my eye and hold it up or tilt my head back. I didn't think I had a right eye. I couldn't feel it, couldn't find it, couldn't see. Anyways, I was reaching around, and I found my gun right away, and I was panicking. I wanted to find the clip so I can, put the bullets in it, because I couldn't see down the tube, and my fingers were all going different directions. And as I was feeling around for the clip, I found my mustache and goatee.
Wow.
And then I found my ear and a couple chunks of my head. So I was kind of putting them in my hand, and then I found the clip, and the first thing I did is slammed it in the gun and fired 3 rounds at the first dark thing that I seen or could kind of make out. And then I was sitting there, and I had all the pieces, and I'm just looking at them. I can hardly tell what they are, but I just sitting there and just like, what do you do? There's blood dripping all over, pouring all over the place. And this is probably the lowest point in my life. I just didn't know what to do. You're not going to survive this. And it was a tough moment. I'm sitting there.
The sense that there must have been still at that point in time just self-evaluation as far as figuring out exactly the extent of the injuries that you had. Like, did you know when you're finding these pieces of your, what you mentioned, your beard and parts of your ear and your nose, did you know they were missing, or was it just in that mauling you felt pressure, but you didn't really have an understanding of exactly what was happening?
I guess I didn't really know what she's pulling off. You could just feel pressure and things, and hear it kind of ripping, but I didn't know, I guess until I had it in my hand what was really coming off.
And then exactly what might have been missing. Like it's just almost kind of fluke that you were able to find all this stuff without having really understanding of the extent of your injuries and the ability to even see and have an idea of where you were and where everything else was if you're feeling around.
Like I remember one of the pieces I grabbed, I was feeling it, and you could feel like the hair. It was like my eyebrow and skin. I could just tell. I could just feel with my finger, like, wow. Like I knew what it was. It was kind of creepy, I guess. And you could feel the ridges of like the ear, and yeah. So I had all these pieces there, and I pulled my phone out, and I started to text my wife, a bunch of things like that. I miss her, and that I screwed up, and that I'm gonna miss her and the monster, my daughter. And it was really hard because it was just hard. What do you do? You're you're obviously not going to make it out. I'm bleeding all over the place. There's things missing. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I know, I can't stand. It was tough. So, I was sitting there thinking, like, do I just end it, or do I just lay here and, like, what do I do? Right? Take matters in my own hands, or
processing what was going on and how you're going to end up managing that situation. You probably were wondering what the extent was, but you knew it was obviously really bad.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'm sure there was something in the back of your mind of, what if this bear comes back again? Or was that even a thought?
I don't think that was a thought at that time. I think it was more of, I'm gonna die, and this is the million thoughts that race through your mind. Like, I'm not gonna go fishing again. I won't be able to walk my daughter down the aisle when she gets married. Won't see her graduate. Won't see the grandkids. It's just the things that run through your head so rapidly. It's so many things that come up. And when you're just, what do you do? Do you let things happen naturally, or do you just finish it and end the suffering? So, like I said, this is probably one of my darkest moments, and I decided that I was just going to end it. So I grabbed my rifle and I threw a shell in there, and I cocked it, put it underneath my chin, pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off. It was, I guess, kind of a relief, but not. And then when I moved it away and rechambered it, it went off, and that kind of scared me, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it didn't go off, and then it misfired when you're going to put another round into the chamber.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know if I didn't put a shell in, or the hammer didn't get already cocked. I don't know what happened. I never really thought twice about it. Yeah. That was just kind of a, it's a hard thing to talk about, or to admit. Like, that's one of the biggest things I struggle with this whole process is, coming out with the book, and that is to actually admit that. It's just hard.
We had kind of touched on it, and I think it's still worth saying that, when you're in a moment like that, I don't think anyone's immune to having thoughts of specifically that. And it's not, I think the hard part, and I'm interpreting this, as far as thinking, of course, why it's hard to explain, because that the shame in that is perceived as weakness. But I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and when you decide not to, we were talking about earlier, where everybody talks about being, toughen up and strength and everything else, but mental strength is, I think, it's underestimated, and those are very valid thoughts. I don't think having that honesty to be able to, express exactly what it was like at that moment is, I think, the realization of how severe it was and where you were at that point in time. And I think anybody that was who would experience that and be in that position, I think they'd be a liar if they said they didn't think about those exact same thoughts.
As graphic as the attacks were in the book, this one short paragraph is probably the thing that stuck with me the most when I read it. And it's a very short part of the book, but I had to stop and reread it, and it hit me hard. And again, I've thought about it a lot since too. And not only the attack, but then at this stage, there's no hope. There's nobody nearby. He's in the middle of nowhere. There's no SOS button. He didn't have an inReach that he could SOS. I'm hurt. Come get me. Like, I am so screwed. I'm so far in the middle of nowhere.
You're 14 or 17 kilometers from your pickup.
Yeah, about that.
In the middle of nowhere,
where nobody's at.
And
where nobody normally goes.
Yeah, and you're in a position where, I mean, it could be at that time moments of how long are you going to be able to survive before,
how long do I have to endure this pain?
Exactly.
Because I'm like you said, if you thought about hiking out to the truck, you never would have made it.
No,
it was too far.
It didn't even cross my mind. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I knew sitting there that I wasn't going to make it. It was either going to happen there or 100 yards from there. And so, I'm sitting there and I knew I was going to make it. And I wanted to try to document as much as I could. So I let my wife know that I just didn't give up, that I tried. So I took one of my sweatshirts I had and I put it on upside down, put the neck piece on, and folded the shirt open. And I stuck all the pieces of my face and stuff on the shirt, kind of tried to put them, layer them blood to blood, just hopefully to keep them alive. I don't know where I got that from. I just kind of,
it makes sense.
Instinct.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and you pretty much, when the bear had, scalped him.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. It was your scalp was,
yeah, they call it fully degloved. So all the skin from the back of my neck, kind of where my spine hits the skull, all that was peeled off my head, and my left side of my jaw was hanging down, and there was no skin on my face. It was all kind of hanging down, parts ripped off, and all the way down to my left collarbone. Everything was all exposed. Left eye was hanging out of the socket. Yeah. Hanging out, busted out, and kind of hanging down.
And you can see through it still.
I could, yeah. It was kind of creepy, like kind of like a kid's cartoon. They have like the eye in their hand, and that's what it kind of felt like.
Was there like, were you blink like when you talk like that, my eyes are watering, I want to blink. Like, were there automatic body functions that were happening? Were you blinking a lot, or like were you trying?
There wasn't eyelids at that point.
There was no eyelids.
They were gone. Like it was just skull, and looked like somebody took a ball peen hammer and smashed me over the forehead and over the face with a ball peen hammer.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a pretty scene.
No.
And so I guess, and not to get technical, but I'm thinking the exact same thing is, if my eyes are open too long, my eyes are driving me nuts. And in that situation, when you have, you weren't planning on making it all the way out, but you think how many hours you had to hike out. How do your eyes stay moist?
Exactly.
Right? And it's a weird thing to discuss and to think about, but
hold your eyeball. I mean, at some point, and I know this is probably, you were in shock, so the pain wasn't there, but eventually, over, I don't know, some period of time, the pain and sensitivity and ability to be able to just have the agility and function like you were at that time, being able to place some of these parts and see, are going to start to be compromised, and that pain now is going to start to override the ability to have any kind of rational thought. Like, it's just going to end up being, unless I'm wrong, I don't know.
I was pretty calm. Like, I was fully aware of the situation. I didn't really feel any pain. I was pretty calm. Like, I wasn't freaking out or panicking. I don't know, I was able to keep myself pretty calm, like I wasn't breathing deep or heavy. It was just normal. Like, all right, what's next? And so I was feeling around my face. I could feel my jaw hanging down, like all my teeth on the left side were all exposed. And I threw the pieces on my head, folded the shirt up, and then I tied, it was a long sleeve shirt. I tied the sleeves underneath my chin, kind of pushed my jaw up and tied it tight underneath my chin. And then I tied 2 knots in the back really tight just to hold my head straight. I was going through my backpack looking for, my first aid kit, which I found. And of course I opened it up and they had like little tiny, 4-inch by 4-inch Band-Aids. And I need a couple more of those, but there was nothing in there to use. I bought one of these advanced outdoor camping family kits, and I was just like, there's nothing in here that I can use. So I was like throwing pieces all side the mountainside. And at this point too, I was so hungry, and I I had this pack of Swedish berries in my backpack. I bought this mega pack, and I always loved eating those on the mountainside. So I had this, and I was so hungry, and I just wanted to eat them. And I tried to open up the bag, but my hands are so messed up. And I got the bag open, and it ripped open, and they just like all over the mountainside.
Exploded.
Kind of exploded. So I remember picking some of them up. I had them in my hand, and I was trying to eat them, but I couldn't move my jaw. Like, it was just hanging there. And so I was putting them in the side kind of, I don't know, kind of in my cheek where my jaw usually is, and pushing them in there, sitting them on my tongue and on the back of my throat, and just letting them kind of dissolve and run in. Um, and I was just sitting like, well, at least I owe it to my wife to at least make it to some place where they're gonna find me quicker, because where I was, no one really goes. Like maybe 1 or 2 people a year go back in there. So I was just thinking, well, maybe if I get a little bit further down the trail where somebody's going to come across me. And I was more worried about my wife not being able to, them not being able to find me right away, and her having to worry. And I wanted to make it where somebody's going to find me, find my body
a little quicker for sure.
Yeah. And so after I had a few Swedish berries, I grabbed my water bottle and I threw a couple sweaters over top of my shoulders. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and it was 9:36 a.m. when we first made contact, and so it's probably closer to 10 o'clock now. And being in the mountains up that high, you get sunburned pretty quick. So I was more worried about getting sunburned and drained. So I was going to cover myself to protect myself, so I can make it a little bit further out of there. And so I was sitting there, and I can't really see, but I knew which way to go. And I tried to stand up, and I couldn't. It was all the strength I could. I couldn't get up. The first 10 feet, I probably fell 100 times. Like it was just stand up, fall over, stand up, fall over. My whole right leg, just I couldn't put any weight on it. I just buckled and I'd fall. When I did get to stand, I got to a point where I could kind of stand, and I would basically drag my foot. The first part of the trail goes down a steep drainage.
You said it was about a 35-degree incline on the hill here still that you're at. Were you able to, like when you're trying to stand, did you use your pack or anything to help support your body weight, like a crutch or a cane or something?
I was using my rifle. I had my rifle in my hand, and I was trying to use that. And for some reason, I had like a box of ammo there, lots of rounds,
or 5 boxes.
Yeah, 5. Yeah,
at least pack a light for the
40 to hunt. 50 pounds. Yeah, 40, 50 rounds. I'm one of those people that use their backpack, don't quite clean it out, and you can never find your shells, so you go buy more, and
then next thing you know, you find them in a situation like this.
Yeah, and I was like, perfect. Now I got these rounds, so I can send lots of SOSs off. Right? No, pretty much everything I seen that was dark or looked dark got 3 bullets. It didn't matter what it was. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but if it was dark looking, you got 3 bullets.
So you're using your gun as a crutch to be able to kind of walk down this trail. Your pack you just left behind.
Yeah, I just screw the pack, screw the bike. I don't need
it. You
it.
just had some rounds, and that was pretty much it. You're wearing a t-shirt and whatever, and you're just trying to make your way back to as far down the trail as you can to be able to be found sooner.
Yeah. And so in the first 100 yards, it just goes down a really steep down in the drainage. And I remember I started going down the trail, and it's pretty steep. I lost my footing, and I tumbled probably 300 feet or so down the trail, down the drainage into the bigger boulders, down to a creek. And I remember I tumbled into that, and I hit there, and that's when things really hurt. I was completely mangled up, and I could hardly move. Everything hurt at that point. I had all I could do just to kind of roll sideways just to get some relief, like kind of like knock the wind out of me. And I guess it's like being in a wash machine and just bouncing around. And I remember laying on the rocks there, and I was pretty mangled. I mean, I was in a lot of pain, and I gave up, and I was laying there, and I couldn't continue on. Like I was just so exhausted, so hurt. And I pulled my phone out, and I was going to play some music and just fall asleep. So I pulled my phone out, and of course I can't see, and good thing with the iPhone, they got all the fancy colored icons. So I was clicking around, and managed to get the music app up, and I hit to play some music. and the song that come on was Baby Shark. And so we used to play Baby Shark for my daughter when she was sick or couldn't sleep at night. We'd play that, and I would soothe her. And so here I'm laying in the rocks, and I got my iPhone out, and the song comes on, Baby Shark, do 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 do. So I think after like the third song, the third time, it was on repeat. I couldn't take it off repeat, and it would play.
You let it go.
I just let it go.
I've never heard of that song until I read it in your book, and I've got kids and grandkids, so I looked it up, and I was like, I don't know, I can play it, but I was like, I don't know if that's a dick thing to do, but do you mind if I play it, or
go for it?
Okay. Just for the listener, because I was like, man, what's this Baby Shark thing?
It's not a trigger.
Nope.
No,
well,
okay.
It was, but we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
I'm going to share the screen now. Boom. And then we're going to bring it over to here. Uh-oh.
There's lots of different versions of it.
What's happening here? Why is this not working? Please pray. Oh, there you go.
Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark. Mommy shark, do 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 do. Mommy shark, do 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 do. Mommy shark, do 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 do. Mommy shark.
Daddy shark, do 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 do. Daddy shark, do 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 do. Daddy.
Okay, so that was playing over and over. It's catchy, but I feel like that would probably drive you nuts.
As a father with young kids, I'm not very happy that you just put it back in my head, because it'll be there for the next 7 days.
Oh man! So you had that on repeat?
Yeah, and I don't know what the song brings back lots of memories, and I don't know if it was the fact that the song playing on repeat wanted me to get out of there, or or the thought of seeing my kids again, or my daughter again, and
there's motivation.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it was more the motivational side of things. So I couldn't stand. I was mangled up in the big boulders, and I just kind of knew what direction I needed to go in, so I started crawling up the drainage on the other side and got to the trail. And I remember crawling through the short little junipers and the spruce trees and the deadfall, and I just crawled in a straight line down across the mountainside. And I got to a point where it was where the trail was. It was a little more kind of, I guess, a little flatter. I was able to get back up and drag my right leg and get through the trees. And but there was a trail. My object was to get to the next trail that went up over to a drainage or a bowl and behind. And I was just trying to get to there, because that's where some people go. More people go there. And I was trying to get to that trail because where I was kind of a game trail and very few people. So I got to that spot and I was like, okay, this is good. Now let me get a little bit further down. Let me get to the next drainage where a lot more people go, or to where they
just bumping the goalpost, eh?
Yeah, I just okay, well, that's only another let's go another 10 feet. Like there's a log over there. Let's get to that log, right? Yeah, because there's a good spot to sit. And it just making those little, just setting those little tiny mini goals.
Yeah.
And so you're working, okay, I got to there, now I can get to the next tree, or a little bit further down. So I got to the last drainage before the main trail, and I got to that one, and I was okay, awesome. So now I'm here. Now I got to get through the drainage and get to where the road ends. I call it. It's like the end of the road. And I was just trying to get to there, because a lot of people go to that and at the end of the trail there and sit there and look for sheep. So I have very high chance someone's going to find me there. So just trying to get to there. Well, I get to the next drainage, and it's just as steep as the last one. Of course, I tumbled down it and crawled across and got up to the main trail. And I remember there was a big spruce tree there, kind of where the goat trail I'm on and the road ends. And I remember crawling up through the junipers next to that big spruce tree, and I got to that trail, and I was happy because I knew there somebody would find me within a day or so. Like,
how far? What's the distance here to put things in perspective up to that point?
From where I got mauled, this is probably around the 2-kilometer mark.
Man, where were these cowboys that you had mentioned earlier that you'd passed on the?
They're probably from this point another 2 to 3 kilometers away from where I was
To go still.
Yeah.
And we're talking army crawling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Zombie leg dragging. If
yeah,
that's
it
the
used
best
to
way
be look more like a
describe it.
zombie. Yeah, more
Yeah.
like yeah.
Because that leg doesn't work. You got
No.
your tendons don't work around that knee, so you got to drag.
Basically drag it.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, I'm glad. So, Aaron, I mean, these are good things to be bringing up because the how severe your injuries were. You're bleeding. Your armor crawling through, some very extreme terrain, steep enough to where you're falling down into creek beds and whatnot. Was there a change in the way you were feeling? Were you getting nauseous? Was there a sense of was the shock starting to wear off a little bit at this point, or?
I was extremely exhausted. I just was just so tired. It just, I don't know, it's so hard to describe, but just absolutely ran ragged. Just like I could have just stopped and fell asleep. Like I was just so tired, so exhausted at this point. Yeah.
It's a weird question, but when you're falling and you're going through some of this stuff, was there a lot of mud and debris and twigs and brush getting impacted into some of your wounds and your injuries that were starting to maybe become problematic or a concern of any kind, like especially with your eye there?
I didn't really particularly care, but I had like spruce needles and branches and leaves stuck to my face from falling, and from what the ladies that helped me out at Panther River there, they had I remember them talking about all the sticks and needles and crap stuck to my skull and face.
And these pieces that you had put on the top of your head, was that being kept in place still? You had a knot and your shirt was holding your jaw and everything somewhat in place?
So like the body part of the shirt, I put everything inside and I folded the shirt down around my neck and then tied it underneath my chin, and then the sleeves underneath my chin and on the back. So that was
did a pretty good job, man. Like I gotta say, like, I don't think I can do that on the best of days.
Well,
at all. Like, I mean, your hands, the dexterity that you were able to, what you accomplished, like it's worth taking a moment of pause just to say, okay, that is in itself a tremendous feat. I mean, you're accomplishing a lot.
It was hard to do. Like it was a challenge. But I mean, the reason why I tied it underneath my jaw, because my jaw was hanging down, and when you're walking, it's just like hitting you in the chest, and it's annoying. Like it was just there, and so I just when I tied it underneath,
stupid jaw.
And I remember
off my chest again.
It's just like, oh, stop it! Like this is like just irritating. So I tied it in place, really. I guess
with Baby Shark playing in the background still.
Crawling to the bush, listening to Baby Shark. That probably kept the bear away.
It's humorous, but wow, it's pretty wild.
And speaking of kept the bear away, I gotta say, if I was trying to think about the perfect sweet treat to bring bears in, it would be Swedish berries that you had 1 kilogram of on your trip.
Yep.
Well, it had to have been the sugar, right? That was keeping you going, and you were injecting energy into the bloodstream.
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit, not much, but it's there.
Man, those tasted good that day. I gotta say, those tasted really good. Yeah. I mean, even still to this day, every time I go hunting, all my buddies that come with me, they bring a pack of Swedish berries and they just leave it for me. Yeah. And when I was walking out, I had a piece of my face that was hanging down and it was dangling. And I actually, at one point in time, was thinking about getting my knife and cutting it off because it was just hanging there, and it was driving me nuts. So I had to like try to tuck it in somewhere, and it just like, what do you do? Like, this is attached to me. Okay, let's tuck it in the shirt or something. And it, it's just the weird things that drive you nuts when you're missing your face. I don't know. It's just I mean, of all things, I'm more concerned
I
about.
love the humor. Like, I mean, talk about making light of a situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the little things that you just, yeah. I mean, looking at my hand and like my finger, my pinky was like completely sideways, and you're just looking at like, well, that's kind of weird. Like you're just pulling on it, and just no, there's nothing there, and just the weird stuff of all things. So when I got to that main trail, I was like, okay, well, I made it this far. Let's get down another 100 yards down the trail where it splits. And so if I get to the split, well, there's a lot of people that go to there, and they go either the one pass or the pass that I'm in. And everybody went to the other pass because I guess there's probably sheep there. And so
none of the one you've been back to.
No,
17 years.
There's no sheep in there. No people. So obviously no sheep.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, I want to make it down to there. And I just remember walking on the trail. This part of the trail, there's lots of little saplings, poplar saplings all the way along. And that's where I normally see the bears. And I just remember walking through there and, like holding on to the little trees and trying to get down the trail and not fall over. And just kind of slowly making my way around the edge of the mountain. And I got around to where the trail splits, and I was like, oh, I'm here. Okay. It's like awesome. Like I made it this far. So like, no, I mean, there's a lot of higher chance of somebody finding me. And
so the trail split, sorry, but I was just going back to when we were looking on the Google map. That's about halfway, it looked like, wasn't it? Like you're starting to make
this was about a third of the way, maybe about a third. A little over a quarter, closer to the
making some decent. So what period of time did it take you to do this? Because you said it's shocking how accurate you could your memory was as far as timing and spatial awareness of where you were. And I think you mentioned it was around
9:36 a.m.
9:36 a.m. And at this point now, this is an hour, 2, 3 into the day, like you're hitting about noonish or so.
Yeah, this would be pretty close to noon.
Okay,
it was pretty close to noon. I remember this part was in the small sapling, so there was late August, so leaves are still on the trees, and it's kind of like the shady part. And you come around a corner, and it gets kind of open. And I remember feeling the heat, and like you can just feel how warm it is. And when I got around that corner, I threw a couple sweatshirts over top of my shoulders just to keep me from getting sunburned. And
yeah,
I was more worried about getting sunburned.
It's August, it's hot, and our days are extremely long in this country. I mean, we've got maybe 5 hours of darkness, 6 hours of darkness.
Yeah, maybe.
Here in the bush, there's mosquitoes. It's smuggy.
Yeah, I just remember coming around, and I could feel the heat, and the trees kind of open up, and then it goes more into more dense, older spruce. And I got to that point, and I took one of my shirts off. I just had draped over my shoulders, and I hung it in the tree there, kind of in the middle of the trail so that someone would see it. And I got to the older spruce, and I was working my way through there, and I was thinking, well, I know those cowboys are kind of down in this area where their camp was. So let's try to get to them, and hopefully they're still there having their coffee, right? I mean, I know this is like lunchtime, but maybe they'd be eating lunch.
Absolutely.
So I remember walking down the trail, and I couldn't talk. I can only like kind of moan or make weird noises, and my jaw's hanging there. And I remember I turned sideways and was kind of shuffling down the trail, trying to look into the trees on that one side of the trail to see if I can spot their tent or see them. And I remember just kind of shuffling down the trail, and I got to that spot where I was pretty sure the camp was, but there was nothing there. I couldn't see anything there, and I was, trying to make noise. And I fired a couple of rounds of the gun off up in the air, and nothing. I couldn't hear horses. I couldn't hear nothing. And there was nobody there, and I was devastated. I was like, well, this sucks. Like, I mean, I wanted somebody to be there.
Yeah. For sure. Another, I think, morale hit obviously
huge. This was like, oh, like those are the guys that could find me, and so that sucked. And
they weren't even coming back at this point. Like they had packed up camp.
Yeah,
and
there was
headed out.
there was no tent, no nothing there, no sign of them being there. I mean, I know I couldn't see very well, but I didn't. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of their campsite's like 3 feet off the trail or 5 feet off the trail, so I mean, there was nothing there. And I was shuffling along. There's quite a steep. There's a creek that cuts through there, and it's about a 10-foot drop. And I remember I got to the edge of that, and I was like, "How am I going to get down this?" Well, I found an easy way. I just fell down it.
Gravity.
This is gravity. Yeah, like let's just give her, right. So I fell down and I landed right face first into the creek, and my face was in the water, and I was so tired, and I hit and then face underneath the water, and it's hard to breathe or move, and I crawled through it, got out of the creek and up the other side of the creek, and it was pretty steep, about a 5-6 foot. I remember crawling up, and there was a little sapling there, and I pulled myself on that, and I managed to stand back up again. And it was I don't know, just remember that spot and getting up there, and I was able to, I guess, get enough strength to stand and keep going. And I was probably at this point, it was about halfway, I want to say, to my truck.
Okay.
At another kilometer and a half to go till I got to the outfitter tent, where they always set up there in early August, and they're there all the time. Like every time I've been by there, they were there. But this morning, actually, I didn't see them when I went in. So I got up and started walking through the rest of the spruce, and it gets to the creek, or the North Burnt Timber Creek there. And since the flood we had quite a few years ago, the trail's all blown out at that point. It's just you walk down the creek, and it's all washed rock everywhere and lots of deadfall, and there was no trail. So at that point I had to just kind of follow the creek down and meet up with the other trail. And right where the creek and the other trail is, that's where the outfitters usually have their camp set up, or that's what they always have the camp set up.
And that's what you had pointed out when we were looking at the map earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like these moments that you're going through were just little areas of where you had to kind of work through something, whether it was lack of energy, maybe it was a mental block, but there was a moment that you had to kind of struggle and then continue on. And then next you got yourself kind of recomposed and then refocused on your next goal.
Yeah.
And now this was the lodge. The cowboys are gone. You made yourself back up, that embankment. And that was, okay, let's hopefully this lodge, there's some people at this lodge.
Yeah. Well, it was the outfitter's tent there. So the next set of obstacles was walking down the creek, and of course it's all washed out. There's all this deadfall everywhere, and you get to a piece of deadfall, and like, do you walk around it or do you step over it? And then sometimes you get in a big log jam, and you get a bunch of logs climb over. So it was just trying, when you get to those, because I couldn't see very far, do I just go over it, or do I
risk having to go all the way around this thing?
Right? And so each time I came to a piece, it's like, okay, like trying to feel, is this the thin part of the tree, like the top, or is this the bottom? We got to walk around the root ball. And so that was a hard, it was hard to decide. And so I just kind of meandered my way down, following the creek, and I got to kind of a familiar spot where the trail used to be, and I knew the outfitter's tent was right there in that spot. So I end up kind of walking through some willow brush on along there, and I come to the electric fence of the outfitter's tent, and felt my way around, and found where it opened up, and I opened up the fence, and their setup is I think the two big canvas tents, and one's like their food tent, one's their sleep quarters. So
score.
Yeah, I was
starting to feel pretty good here.
Yeah, when I got into the fence, so I couldn't I couldn't see any horses or couldn't hear any horses or anybody. I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're out hunting and, maybe there's a radio or a sat phone sitting inside the tent. So I opened the first tent, trying to feel around, got the zipper opened up, and there was nobody in there, and I couldn't see a phone or radio. So then I went right directly to the second tent and opened it up, and that one was it was like empty. There was nothing in there. And so I'm like, okay, well, I went back to the first tent, and they had a great big plywood, like a 4x4 plywood cabinet, and they had a lock on there, or I don't know, like a little handle thing, and
A latch.
Yeah. And I couldn't get it open, and I was just like, oh, screw it. So I put my hand on it, and I knocked it down on the ground, and it hit the ground, and it broke open, and there was all these canned food rolling around. and inside there was a little black case, and it was like a perfect size case for like the old sat phones or like the old mic phones, radios.
Yeah.
And like, oh, there's a phone, yes. Or, and I opened it up, and it ended up being a pocket knife. So I was that sucked. So, and I'm sitting there, and I'm feeling around, and there's all these cans rolling across the floor. And I remember the one can, I recognized what it was. It was like a triangle shape, like a can of ham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Spam. Yeah.
How are you going to get into that?
Well, that's the case. Yeah. See, I made it this far.
It's not like you can gnaw on it. I mean,
how do you know? So I got this like triangle shaped can, and I knew exactly what it was. It was like, ham. And so I got the little T thing that you got to stick in the can. And
yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that when your fingers don't work. So I'm looking at it like, well, this is pointless. So I'm trying to get into it, and I just grabbed another can and rock, started beating it up. Finally, I got the corner of it opened up and peeled it open. And I remember just stick my fingers in that.
You got that thing open just by beating the hell out of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
just
impressed.
It.
Wow. I'm going to try that the next time.
When you're that hungry and determined, like it's got the little tab that you got to pull up to get it started.
They're throwaway. I don't know why they have. I never usually get those things to work.
Yeah. I remember looking at it like, well, how do I get my finger? Like it just nothing works. So I just started beating on it with another can, and I had a can sitting there, put it on top, and I was beating it with another can. And because there's no chance I was going to open up like a regular can, right?
So how did you be able to shoot? Like, did you just take pieces of this?
So I peeled it open there and just like grabbed a chunk of it and just shoved it in the corner of my mouth and just let it like kind of roll down my throat, or just I was mashing up with my tongue to my roof of my mouth, trying to squish the juices out of it.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, oh, it was so good. Like it tasted so good. And I mean, that's one of the things you want to do is eat ham and listen to Baby Shark, right?
It's a holiday right there for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's
canned ham and Baby Shark.
Yeah. So they had
Christmas is coming.
Should we play that again?
Do you guys have any spam?
Yeah.
Oh man, we might actually. Yeah, Jody's over there. Yeah, we really want to get in the moment. We can do that.
So so they had a picnic table. So I'm sitting at the picnic table, and I got my fancy can of ham, and I'm sitting there eating it, and I just remember sitting there, and you just like the blood dripping, just drip, and it was irritating. So I was trying to wipe it off because it's just it was bothering me, of all things. And I just kept like, oh well, this like well, I want to stop, right? And then looking around on the table, and there were some bounty sheets. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to fix this. So I started wrapping around my head and ran out.
Wow.
And then I found some toilet, and then I was sitting there eating, and then it was still dripping. I'm like, well, where's it dripping from now? Oh, my hand. So I started wrapping my hands up, and then I found a roll of toilet paper, and I just started wrapping my face and everything up until it stopped. And while I was wrapping it, my jaw was being irritating and hanging down. So I grabbed my jaw and just kind of pushed it up so I can wrap it. And as I was doing that, it clicked, and I'm like, ooh, that felt good. And I was like testing, like I could, like it just, I don't know if it was dislocated or something, but it kind of snapped in, and it was like a relief, and I could kind of talk. Well, I could talk at that point. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good. And I couldn't really open my mouth, but all the whole side and my cheek and everything was gone. So, and then, as I was sitting there, there was a roll of like this white tape. It looked like athletics tape. And so I grabbed that out and just to tape the toilet paper in place and bounty sheets because they were falling off, and that was irritating. So I taped it in place. And then my hands, I had holes in my hands, and I remember looking at my hands. You could see right through them. It was like a golf ball size hole in my right hand. And my left hand, there's my pinky finger was the bone was sticking out and pieces everywhere. And so I wrapped them up with tape to cover the holes, and then I continued.
Pretty much you were able to patch yourself up a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, just enough just to stop the blood from dripping everywhere and making a mess, pretty much. And I was sitting there finally able to enjoy
so that place that you pretty much found this ham must have been just completely destroyed, like a bear had been in there.
There was quite a mess. I felt kind of bad. So and I was
you felt bad.
I felt bad. Well, I mean, like this here's some guy comes in their camp, breaks their cabinet, eats their food and bleeds all over the place. I mean,
yeah, you're very inconsiderate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good thing to do, right? I mean,
so Canadian. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Exactly.
I miss.
So when I was digging around, I found some juice boxes, and they had like a couple of little Tetra Packs out, and I was like, "Oh yes,
score!"
So trying to get the straw off, and that didn't work. So you just squeeze it enough, and it like popped the corner, and you could squirt in my mouth, and they tasted so good. I'm in there, and one of the things I did when I first got in there, when I was sitting down at the table, I got my phone out, and I have when I was doing interval training, I have like a little timer app, and you just hit it, and it just had the timer go, and it just for 30 seconds, and it'd ring, and then recount and go again. And I brought that out, and I was hitting it because I didn't want to fall asleep.
So that was now where the fatigue was starting to kick into where it was a concern.
Yeah, I was very exhausted.
But you had, I think, was there any hope? Like, were you now starting to that goalpost was kind of actually starting to get a little bit further out? Were you starting to get a little bit more optimistic about really what the game plan was?
No, I was kind of going downhill at that point. I was just so tired and exhausted. I actually, when I was sitting there, I got a sleeping bag. Grabbed a sleeping bag, and I rolled it out on the floor, cleaned out some of the cans there, and rolled it out on the floor, opened it up. And these outfitters their camp is always set up. Their stove has always got wood in it, and then kindling and everything all ready to go. All they got to do is just light it.
Yeah.
And I remember I opened it up and feeling in there, oh, it's already ready to go. And I was going to light a fire and just keep warm and fall asleep. I was so tired. It's just extremely exhausted. So I remember sitting there looking at the fireplace, and we got sleeping bag rolled out, and I just didn't know what to do.
One of those moments that you had to kind of grapple a little bit with.
Yeah, and I remember I found some paper sitting on the table and a Sharpie, and I was kind of writing a goodbye note to my wife, but that's when one side of the note I wrote to the outfitter, like, sorry, I messed up your camp, and this is who I am. And on the backside was more like a goodbye to my wife, because I was really going to give up at that point too. It was tough. So I wrote on it, and then I remember emptying out my pockets, and there was 3 shells left. So I got outside the tent, and I fired the last 3 rounds off, and I grabbed the last Tetra Pack of 5 juice boxes, and there's about 5 miles from here to the truck. So I figured, heck, I got enough energy for every mile.
You made a decision.
Juice box, yeah. And I fired off the last 3 rounds, and
so that was a sign of commitment to your decision.
Yeah, I was thinking, maybe the guys are coming into camp. Maybe they had to go for something, and they're coming in that day. So I figured I better get down the trail. Maybe they'll find me. And I still wasn't thinking I was going to make it. So I left a note on the table, put my gun next to it. I left the tent. I closed it up, and
you are got to be the politest guy. My goodness.
Zip it up.
I zipped it up, and they had like 4 chairs out front, and I sat in one for a minute there, and of course it was all bloody, and I tried wiping it off, and so I zipped up the tent, and when I left their camp, they have electric fence up, so I hooked the fence back up, and then started hiking down the trail, and I had my juice boxes. I was all happy, like kid in the candy store, and I got these nice fancy, I think they're grape. And I left the camp, and I pop one open, and I'm just trying to squirt in my mouth as I'm walking, and the trail kind of is pretty flat and zigzags through, crosses the creek, I don't know, probably half a dozen times, and all along the way, about every, I don't know, half hour or so, or 15 minutes, I'd pop a juice box and start drinking it. And so the trail crosses the creek one last time, and there's a base of a hill there, and it's a really steep, nasty hill. And the first thing you do when you get onto that or hike into that area, the first thing you do is climb this stupid hill and go down it. And
you knew where you were?
I knew where I was, and I had a choice to make. Either I can walk down the creek down, another 3 to 4 kilometers to where the road crosses, and then walk down the road to my truck, or cut up through the bush to my truck. I've never done it before, but I have, I kind of know where I'm at, and if I could do it, or I could just walk up the hill, the really steep, stupid hill, and go up that way. And I was just thinking, like, well, I'm not going to make it, so I better stick to the trail because somebody will find me there. And so I, sucked back a juice box and started making my way up the hill. And I just remember looking at my feet and just kind of shuffling along up the hill. And at this point in time, my right leg was pretty much seized straight, so completely useless, but at least I can put weight on it because it was just solid straight. So I was working my way up this hill, and I come across these 2 rocks. They're a little bit bigger than about, I guess, twice the size of a shoebox or so, and they're right in the middle of the trail, and they have like really no significant. They're always there, and every time I ride my bike in, I'd hit the rocks and almost fall over, and you just want to, like, I was always too lazy to move them. So they were like 3/4 of the way, almost to the top of the hill, and I remember just walking, and I see the rocks, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to make it. Like, at that point when I saw those rocks, I knew where I was. I knew I'm almost at the top of the hill, and it's only a mile from here to my truck. I'm going to make it. Like, I at that point I knew, and I was so happy. And then, much to my surprise, I had a juice box. I had one left, and I was like, oh. So I popped it open, and I sucked it back right there quick, and I kissed my hand and touched each rock, like, oh, thank you, and I knew I was going to make it. And I got over the top of the hill and went down the other side, and it's pretty straight and flat to where the truck is, but, well, there was a gate across the road, so you can't drive in there. And so I got to the gate, thinking you're going to make it out. And I had a couple of decisions to make. I can go on the right side and go like 30 feet and walk through a little bit of a swamp and come back to the trail, or I can go to the left and walk, 100 feet around the gate and get back to the road. And
this is one of those gates where instead of just a gate that swings in like 2 pieces of pipe, it's an actual solid gate that's got.
No, it was like you swing in like pieces of pipe.
Oh, okay, so you couldn't go underneath it.
Well, see, that was the thing. So,
so
I could, I go around the left side, and it's a nice, easy walk, but it's like 80 feet one way and 80 feet back. Where the other side, 30 feet through a swamp and 30 feet back, right? So, the choice is obvious, right? I'm going to do the smart thing and go underneath. So, that was probably the dumbest thing I did the whole way. When I tucked underneath the gate, I started to lose consciousness. I started to kind of pass out, and there was a road sign there that has like the holes drilled into it, like it's like a
it's
like an L bracket with the holes.
Yeah, like a
angle iron kind of.
Yeah, and it's galvanized.
Sign. Yes,
yeah. And
it's got the holes in it.
Yeah,
and so I was passing out, and I was like just losing all my strength, and I jammed my fingers into the holes and grabbed on for dear life, and I was holding on to it, and I just was all wobbly, and I couldn't stand up, and I just was like blacking out. And I remember just holding on to this thing for dear life, because if I fell over, I'd probably been done for. And it took probably about 10 minutes or more for me to kind of gain consciousness enough strength so I can stand up. And I stood up and I was like, that was the dumbest thing ever. Like, why didn't I just walk around it? Of all things.
I would have done the exact same thing.
And so now, here I'm still doing the zombie walk, listening to Baby Shark as I'm getting to my truck. And I get up to my truck, and the first thing I did was I had my hands in front of my face and I pushed the side mirror out of the way, and I opened up my truck drawer and I hopped in and put the keys in ignition and I fired it up. And I remember sitting there looking out the front of the truck over the hood, and I couldn't see the end of the hood. Like, everything was all blurry and I couldn't see. And then I rolled down the window and I looked out the window, and I couldn't see the ground. I couldn't tell where the ground was. And I was like, well, this sucks. Like, what do you do? Right. And so there it was all spruce trees on our side of the road. And so it's all like dark green, and there's like a light strip through the middle, which I assumed was the center of the road. And so I just aimed for the light spot and I started to drive, hoping to find somebody.
During these switchbacks that we were talking about earlier with guardrails and narrow, steep grades.
Yeah. And
my goodness. Were you able to see through your other eye?
I didn't think I had a right eye. I couldn't find my right eye.
This was all still with your eye that was hanging?
Yeah.
And how many kilometers was it from where the truck was parked to the resort?
No, 20-ish, 22, 18 to 20 kilometers.
Looking on that map, it looked like it was quite a ways.
Yeah,
it's quite a ways. About a half-hour drive.
I'm going to bring that map up again, just kind of reference, because now that we've heard your story, it's going to, I think, give us a different perspective. I think appreciation for the distance, because was it 14 kilometers? I think he's 17 from the truck to where you were mauled. So now you've made it 17 kilometers. Like, that's a huge feat. What time of day was this? Getting later in the day now?
So I got to my truck about 3:45.
Mauled at 9:36.
Yeah, 9:36. I get the picture.
Time stamped with the selfie.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you're keeping such accurate memory on time and stuff?
Selfie.
What kind of phone were you rocking at the time?
iPhone.
Okay.
Real fancy iPhone.
Yeah.
So where are we at here
Version
again?
1 of 20.
With a 3-hour battery life.
Oh no, the battery life was good because it played Baby Shark the whole way. And it played right until I got to my truck, and when I got to Panther River, it was still playing in my truck at full blast when I got to Panther River.
Wow.
So yeah, it's still
that many hours of Baby Shark might have pushed me over the edge.
You got to go north. Just keep following Highway 40 there.
There's exactly.